Hi everyone, Lewis here, and today I'm going to bring you guys a first look at the early alpha version of ARMA 3 Epoch. It's been in development for a really long time, and it's probably one of my most anticipated mods that is going to be coming out for ARMA 3. There's a bunch of stuff I need to talk about first off, but of course once we get into the gameplay of the mod itself, let's just say it's pretty impressive. This mod is being developed by the same guys who made the ARMA 2 Epoch mod, and just keep in mind that it's early alpha. The thing was with ARMA 2 Epoch, it started off kind of bare and improved a lot over time with constant updates over its lifetime. It's going to be a similar deal with this, and of course the team are mainly focusing on ARMA 3 Epoch now instead of ARMA 2, although that still does get some updates. That doesn't mean either of the mods really started off bare. I think you guys will be really impressed with what I'm going to be showing you today. But just keep in mind that the developers have got some really awesome ideas for ARMA 3 Epoch, and looking down a year from now, I'm sure the mod would have developed a lot and it'll be completely different to the stuff I'm going to show you today. Similar to ARMA 2 Epoch, the mod does mainly focus on PvP and a bunch of other aspects, but obviously I can't show you a lot of those today because, well, not many people have access to it. There's like 6 people or so. When I was showing off all the features, I was just walking around with developers for 3 hours, and this is what I end up getting. So obviously this isn't a representation of what the actual gameplay will be like, so keep in mind when you're looking at this, you know, this is just for features. Think of the features with, you know, 50, 60, 70, whatever amount of players on the server. And a massive thank you to the developers for letting me show this stuff early. So yeah, that's the little disclaimer. Now on to the good stuff. There's a lot of stuff to go through, so let's get straight into it. Right now in the current version, you actually end up spawning on the debug island at the start, and you have 3 options of different trader cities which you teleport to, which will make it very easy to start off with friends, something a lot of people complain about with DayZ. Of course, this isn't DayZ, it's ARMA 3 Epoch, but it does share a lot of features from the ARMA 2 Epoch mod. And one of the biggest things I've noticed which have changed is the looting system. So instead of having a really boring walk into buildings, see 4 different loot spots and look at all of those on the floor, they've actually got interactable objects like microwaves, well, not microwaves actually, but ovens, couches, supply boxes, a bunch of different stuff which are animated. You have to open them up and then you look inside them for the loot, which are all placed on the different shelves, and obviously depending on which lootable object you are looting, you might get different things. So from a fridge you can expect some food, water, and from a supply crate you can expect some weapons, but obviously depending on where you are, whether it's a military base or just some residential town, the spawns of these different objects can vary a lot. Although that doesn't mean you can't get good loot from a town. You could definitely get you know, a pistol or a shitty rifle from a town, but if you do want to get the good stuff, then you're going to have to go to an airfield, which isn't really any surprise at all. Also, the loot is per player, so that means if you see an open door, it doesn't necessarily mean there's no loot. So if some guy has already looted an entire city and you go through that city, you see all of the doors have been opened and all of the boxes, or you see some boxes which are already looted, if you go through there, then a bunch of items will spawn just for you as well. So it's not like how it worked in ARMA 2, where you just wouldn't go to certain places because, you know, well, the server's been up for so long, there's probably nothing there. I do realise that with ARMA 2 Epoch, loot did respawn, but it wasn't too reliable. A lot of the time you could come back and there'd still be nothing there an hour after you originally looted it, or an hour after there was nothing there. Whereas with this, it seems a lot more reliable, and it makes you feel like you're actually scavenging through, you know, the environment and just picking up all of these items which you think are valuable to bring back to a trader to sell for a currency, which I'll talk about a bit later. And the reason I say it feels a lot like scavenging is because of this new feature which I've added, which if you see a bunch of trash on the floor, which you would have probably seen already if you played ARMA 3 for a while, you're able to press T on them and you spawn loot basically under the trash pile. So it's again a random process, just like it is for the spawning of the loot inside the crates, inside the sofas, etc, etc. And every time you do this, it increases your soiled status. Soiled is one of the many statuses which have added into the game, along with temperature, hunger, thirst, energy, immunity, toxicity, stamina, fatigue, damage, and bleeding. Temperature has a really big impact on you at nighttime as well, so sitting in a car can help that a lot. But you might notice there's a bunch of new statuses in the game for the player to experience compared to ARMA 2, where pretty much all you had was hunger, thirst, and the possibility of bleeding. But this, there is a lot more. Pretty much all of these statuses will work the way you expect them to, and you'll find various items around the world which can remedy those. For example, moist towels will -25 your soil status. Red gull you can get, which will replenish energy and thirst, and everything has an effect on a player which is displayed on screen in a beautiful format. So you feel, even if you're not doing too much and you drink a red gull, you feel like you've accomplished something for whatever reason. I don't know why, maybe it's just me, I really like numbers, but when you see those numbers on the screen, it's like, yeah, I did something, it's good. Along with being able to use T to search for a bunch of different trash on the floor, you can also use it now to skin animals. You can't skin dogs, but if you kill a chicken, a goat, something like that, you are able to skin it, and then you can craft actual objects out of the materials you find from skinning them. And you can also imagine you'll probably be able to eat stuff and cook it and whatnot eventually later down the line as well. But either way, I'll talk about the actual base building a bit later, since it is pretty deep. The trader system is still there, as you would have seen before from the trader city still actually being in Epoch, but the traders' inventories are now affected by players. So if you sell things to the trader, others will be able to buy it, and if you buy things even from the traders, then others will not be able to buy it, and it will be gone from their inventory. The traders also work in 8-hour shifts, so if you look on the map and actually find them, you can rob them, kill them, or just trade with them as per normal. So you'll actually have a bunch of different stuff around. You know, depending on what time you go to these different trader zones, you'll have different things which your traders will have. So it's not just a case of going to a gun trader and he has unlimited guns and you can just sell him a bunch of guns. It's actually a much more dynamic system. And going back to what I mentioned before, currency, of course, this is what you trade with in the trader cities. So crypto is the currency. It's a much simpler version compared to ARMA 2 Epoch, because now it's just one simple currency instead of having gold, silver, copper, etc., etc. Selling and buying is much easier. You just double click on what you want and it tells you how much it's going to cost or how much it's going to give you if you sell these different items. So you can bring the trader a bunch of trash and actually do something with it now, instead of just saying, this is shit, I don't need it. So again, making the trader a lot more interesting of a system, I would say. Of course, you still will be able to buy cars, weapons, and a bunch of different stuff. It's just a lot more random what you're going to find with a trader, depending on what the players have been trading with that trader, although I'm sure their inventory will also replenish just because of how the game works. So it's not like you're going to end up with nothing useful in your traders or something like that. And also, because of the introduction of a new trading menu with the traders, there's also now a trading menu with players, and it works exactly the same way. Just double click on what you want to give to the player and they double click on what they want to give to you, and then kaboom, you are able to trade very simply with a player instead of having to drop it on the floor and struggle to pick it up for like 10 hours, which was of course a big issue with ARMA 2 Epoch, which is really awesome. And you do all of this by pressing I. So if you press I on a player, you get up a menu to trade. Press I on a trader and you'll get up a trading menu. It's that simple. There's also now safe zones which protect the trader zones, which I know a lot of people might be used to them in Overpoch and a bunch of ARMA 2 Epoch servers, but it wasn't a normal feature with Epoch. Only a few servers did this. So spawning in with friends, buying some stuff, selling some stuff, or just chilling out and talking to people is perfectly fine to do. And it just makes the whole starting off the game a lot easier, as you can imagine, and also a lot more fun, instead of being in the middle of nowhere and finding it impossible to find your friend since you don't have a vehicle. But if you do have a bunch of cash left over, then go ahead and buy a vehicle for you and your friend at these trading zones, and kaboom, you are set and you can bring your friends around for a lovely little tour. And yes, there will be penalties for killing traders. You can't just go around killing them and robbing them like no tomorrow. Just so you got a weapon doesn't mean you're invincible, so don't start thinking that, oh, we can kill them, so let's just kill them all. No, that's not how it works. So now on to a thing I'm sure many of you guys are wondering about. It is a base building system, along with a bunch of other features which I've just talked about. This also is much simpler. Everything really in your inventory, you just double click on it and it makes sense. So you double click to eat, double click to drink, and if you double click on like a piece of wood, for example, it will tell you everything you're able to craft out of that piece of wood, how much of all these different materials you need. So it's not like a case of looking at the wiki anymore and trying to work out everything you need. You get told what you actually need and what you have. So it's so much simpler, and I'm really happy with that change instead of it being a real confusing system for people who are new to the game. Even if you've got no idea what the fuck you're doing, you'll probably be able to make at least a simple base with the new system. You still probably do want to look at a wiki to make some higher end stuff, since you are able to upgrade pieces as well. But for a very simple base, you can definitely make that without really knowing anything about the game at all. There's now also a power system which you use for base building. You can find power packs which can give you actual power, and they can also be used on a new item which is called a multi-tool, which can heal, kill, revive, and also repair vehicles. You can also get power, which you'll see in the bottom left, from sitting inside a car, kind of like plugging yourself into a car, and it'll just go up over time. So you will need to put in a decent amount of time in the game until you can actually start base building. But of course, once you do get into it, you can base build much easier and much deeper with a new crafting system. And also, with it being worked on from the ground up, it's a much better system. It's as simple as that. The build system is very simple. The key difference is when you place down the parts, they have physics enabled for a few seconds. So you have to make sure it's supported, otherwise it won't work. Wood and stone bases are still a thing in this, and also with physics enabled, you are able to drop objects on people's heads, which I did actually twice on that night. It was good fun. Some people might not be happy with this change because you have to actually give the object support for 15 seconds or so when it has physics enabled, and then it will be, you know, floating kind of thing. But it just means you can't make too ridiculous bases anymore. I mean, if you put in the time, you could put up a stilt kind of thing, put the object down, and then remove the stilt, so then it'll still float, but either way, it just makes it harder to make ridiculous bases, but it's still possible. Personally, I think it's pretty good, because in Arma 2, some people had ridiculous designs. You can still do those, it just takes much, much longer. And what can I say, either way, with the new physics, it's a bunch of fun dropping wooden pallets on top of your friends, so definitely try out that when it does eventually come out. Snapping is also now a thing. It works great and looks awesome. It just fades into the position it should be in. And also, if you want, you can turn it off if you want. So it's no big deal. Getting materials is the same as it used to be. So you could get it, well, get the materials for the base building by trading with players. You could get it from buying it in trader cities, or you can do the normal chopping down trees. So for a simple base, it's the same way as it used to be. Chainsaws are also in, but you can use a hatchet or a chainsaw, chop down some trees, and with the new crafting system being so much simpler, you just craft the stuff you need, and then you're able to place it down. It's very, very simple. Right now, there's a few new weapons in, although I'm sure that will change over time. There's the Ruger, there is the 1911, the multi-tool, which I talked about earlier, and also one rifle, which is the Roland's. Hatchets, chainsaws, sledgehammers all make a return as well. Also, weirdly enough, there's actually earthquakes in the game. They don't have a big impact on the players, but they did look pretty cool, and I was shitting myself when I seen it. And there will more than likely be an impact with earthquakes to buildings in the future, although right now it's not like you're just going to go AFK and you're going to come back to your building and it's fell over or some shit like that. It is something which doesn't do anything right now, but it's still an interesting concept, and like I said, it scared me, which is good.
On each individual building.
What the fuck is that?
Shit, it's an earthquake.
What do you mean it's a fucking earthquake?
We're having an earthquake.
Oh, that's earthquake. I just loaded in and just felt
Welcome
that
to California.
too.
Oh, and there's lightning. Oh, shit. So, yeah, you can see if you open your map now that there's an actual epicenter on the map. We're real close to where we're at, so that's why we felt it. I think it's 1,000 meters away you'll feel it, but after that you won't.
Speaking of being scared, yes, there are enemies in the game. I know I didn't talk about it earlier, but the soiled status has something to do with that. Basically, the more soiled you are, different enemies will be attracted to you. So because you're walking around and you smell like shit, then enemies are gonna, you know, smell you out much easier. There's enemies which don't have eyes. So obviously that's gonna be a thing. And also with the trader zones, if you're extremely soiled as well, traders might not want to deal with you because you smell like shit, like I just said. Either way, I'm not going to show you guys the enemies right now because some of them are kind of buggy, and I do want to leave it as a surprise for people when they come into the game. If you know the enemies inside out, I think it's going to be a bit shit. So just know there is a bunch of various different enemies, and they are scary. At nighttime with lightning, rain, earthquakes, it's a good combo. And although that's not the main focus of mod horror, it's kind of spooky. On the screen right now, though, you will see one of them from a trailer, which is the Cultist. They work kind of like the Weeping Angels, although, like I said, I couldn't really get that to work too well with the gameplay. And there's a few which vary a lot in theme in terms of enemies. So there's a bunch of horror, but like I said, I'll just leave the enemies anyway for you guys as a surprise when you do eventually play it. You can also actually play as a female. You probably noticed the entire gameplay, I was playing as a female. You can get a bunch of different clothes for them. No idea why so much work was put into being able to play as a female. But for those who are dying to play as a girl in Arma 3, then this is the mod for you. There's not really much else left to talk about, but a few other things which I noticed is you're able to stick up your middle finger, and the great thing about sticking it up is you're actually able to do it while moving, which you couldn't do in Arma 2 Epoch mod, or was it even in Arma 2 Epoch? It probably wasn't some servers, but either way you couldn't do it while moving, so that's pretty cool. Also, your eyes readjust to the light, so if it is nighttime, you'll see if you're, in a light area, obviously your eyes aren't going to have too much adjusting to be done, but if you go into a completely pitch black place, then your eyes will adjust a bit and you will actually be able to see at nighttime and walk around with no problem at all, because no one likes a pitch black Arma 2. That sucks. Also, since you can now revive with a multi-tool once per life though, you also have a critical state, so you will die from being too cold for a long amount of time, causing damage. Fallen buildings, as you've seen earlier, could kill you, or you could do a traditional way of dying, which would of course be getting shot at. It's pretty traditional shit, isn't it? But that is pretty much it. So what makes Arma 3 Epoch different to Arma 2 Epoch as a whole from what I've seen? Well, it's on a much bigger map. It runs really well. There aren't zombies, although there is enemies. There's a bunch of weapon attachments for a bunch of different weapons. The base building, crafting, drinking, and other variables are a lot simpler to deal with and also a lot more complicated at the same time somehow. And also jet skis. The mod should be coming out to the public in a small amount of time. Either way, I didn't show you guys everything. If you would be interested in me maybe showing off some PvP, I could talk to the developers and try to get something set up for that to show off how the actual gameplay works instead of just talking about the features. But either way, hopefully it was an interesting insight to what Arma 3 Epoch is, because like I said, I'm extremely hyped up for it, and I'm guessing a bunch of you are also hyped up for it. I'll leave a bunch of links in the description below if you want to look more into the mod on the website or wherever else. And as usual, tell me what you guys think. I don't know how big this mod is going to be, but honestly, I was impressed by how many features it had. I thought it would be more like pretty much just the DayZ mod with loot just on the floor. The enemies would suck balls, and that would be pretty much it. But the base building and whatnot, it's a very simple basis right now. It pretty much does everything Arma 2 Epoch can do, but it does miss a few features, so we're just trying to, you know, nail those down, and you will be able to benefit from the improved performance when you map, etc, etc. The mod does need a lot of balancing with loot spawns and whatnot, but like I said, it's alpha. That is just something which we haven't done yet. We haven't been able to do large-scale testing, etc, etc, so just keep in mind, you know, stuff will change over time. But thanks a lot for watching. Don't forget to comment, like, subscribe, and all good stuff. If you guys have been interested in some more Arma 3 Epoch, then tell me in the comment section below, and I'll see what I can do, and I'll see you guys next time. Hype!